Good evening, chat world, or good morning, chat world. How's everyone doing? You know what we do and how we do it here. We snap, and chop it up. Okay, so don't forget, I'd like for you to go down and make sure that you comment, you like, you share, and subscribe. So, from the top, the title, you can tell that I want to talk about mental health today. Mental health today is real. We have so many people who are dealing with mental health on some level, whether it's you yourself or whether it's a family member or a friend. We all know someone who's dealing with mental health, right? So I think really and truly, the purpose of this video is number one, for you to hear my voice, a new voice, and for everyone to kind of realize that we have a lot of family members, a lot of friends, and even coworkers we see every day that's dealing with things. And so many people, when you talk with them and they talk about their struggle of when they were either depressed or they were diagnosed with, depression or diagnosed with some type of mental illness or mental disorder, they will tell you that they were able to cope and that sometimes, you know, they would be severely depressed. No one would know or could tell because they mask it so well. So I think what number one, I would hope that as we grow, as we um, continue to develop, I want everyone to realize and understand that mental illness, mental disorders should not be anything anyone should be ashamed of. Now, I have personal family members who have been afflicted or who have been provided a diagnosis of being, schizophrenic, severely depressed, manic, I mean, all types of disorders. And firsthand, I know how it affects the person, the individual. I know how it affects the family members who are having to understand, learn, cope. It's difficult, it's challenging. But what I have learned is also out of all of that, the love and the patience and the knowledge that you gain when someone is going through that and it's made known is invaluable. It allows you to help that person because a lot of times they're coping and they think they're coping and getting through and getting by. And a lot of times they're not. It's just they're so used to, it's like they're on autopilot. And a lot of times, um, I know with my family, one family member in particular, we can tell when this person is depressed, um, sad, not themselves, if you will. And what I have learned, I try to kind of um, have and ask questions. I try to have a meaningful conversation and ask questions because a lot of times individuals feel depressed um, because they feel like that they don't have an outlet, anyone to talk to, for various reasons. For various reasons, some of those reasons are that they put this in their own mind, and it's really not that they don't have anyone. They choose not to have those conversations, and it becomes their norm. So even if they wanted to, I think, talk, because they have been so used to not talking, they've been so used to masking, they've been so used to wearing a mask, they've been so used to not having those conversations, they've been so used to just basically getting through the day, but they're really not. So I can speak from my personal experience with my family member, who's a close family member, and I remember having a conversation when this person had an episode, and they made the comment to me that, well, you know what, I didn't tell you or tell anyone because everyone they have their own life to live, and everyone is busy, and I didn't want to feel like I was intruding. I heard those words, and this person was being sincere, totally honest. And I will never forget those words. I will never forget how those words made me feel because here I am thinking that this was a family member who would come and who could come to me, and they didn't. And it was so difficult for me to deal with that because that person inadvertently was very ill as a result of not telling anyone. And it was a very rough road. It's still a rough road because this person has not, in my opinion, um, regained the personality of the person that I knew previously, if you will. And this person chose to just basically be sick at her home and didn't say anything to anyone. That's sad. It's sad because, again, this is a family member who I felt like would know that they could come to me, and not only me, we have other family members who no one knew, and everyone was surprised and shocked. And I can truly say I was surprised, I was shocked, but I was hurt. So I think that we have to have more conversations about mental health. Howie Mandel was on the Jennifer Hudson show today, and well, yesterday, and he mentioned how he found out and how he got his diagnosis. Um, he said, he was always cleaning up. He was always, he had no idea what was going on. His wife told him, she says, I don't know what's going on, but I can't continue. It's either we get a divorce, this is not going to work. And he was like, well, I need to get professional help. So he decided to get professional help. And it's when he got professional help, that's when he found out he had OCD. He was OCD. And he said that that was the very first step in helping him understand what was going on because he didn't even know. He wanted to understand. He couldn't he didn't know. And so it's interesting that, what he felt like in his mind was normal. It bothered his wife, but then he also knew it was an issue to a certain degree, but he just didn't know what it was. And as a result of that, him and his daughter now have an allegiance and a bond, um, because of his diagnosis. And um, she has helped him get through because I think she also has a diagnosis. And so they help each other get through. And during the pandemic, when the pandemic started, of course, he told Jennifer that he went a whole year without seeing his daughter. And that was the longest that he had not been able to see his daughter. And Jennifer showed a picture of him and his daughter after the pandemic. And he was just lovey dovey, hugged up on her. It was a beautiful picture, a beautiful sight to see. But he did say that he has learned that he has chosen to, number one, be an advocate for mental health, to help people understand that it is an illness that a lot of people choose to just not say anything about. They choose not to have conversations. And he wants people to feel like, you know what, this is okay. It may not be normal for most people because it's not normal, but it's normal. He wants it to be normal enough for those people who have those diagnoses or who receives a diagnosis to be able to have those conversations without feeling like they have to hide it, or that they can't have conversations, that they can't get help. He wants people to know. So they have an organization I just thought that that was brave of him to have that or to disclose that, because I know when I first found out that he had OCD years ago, um, and we went to school the next day, and people were talking, oh, he's just, something's wrong. He's just weird. He's just weird, because they wrote about how, he would not shake people's hands. He didn't want to be close to people, and how it was just like, even with taping up shows when he was, I think at that time he was doing, um, I can't remember the name of the game show, where they had the suitcases. Oh, Deal or No Deal. But just how trying and challenging it was when he was actually filming and recording that show. So again, kudos to you, Howie Mandel, to you, your family, your daughter, for just being courageous and speaking about that today on the Jennifer Hudson Show. So I really hope that we can embrace and help those individuals of our family members, friends. We all know someone who's going through, and we may not know that they're going through, but we when we find out, you probably will look back and say, you know what, I remember when this day, and I remember that day you seemed a little just sad, or you didn't seem like yourself. And then you kind of be like, you know what, maybe I should have had a conversation. Maybe I should have just asked, are you okay? Do you want to talk? Sometimes that's all it takes for them to be able to open up. Now, I know with my family member who chose not to say anything, I had had conversations with this person, and I had asked, like, is everything okay? And to, this person chose to respond and say, I'm okay. Let's say that. And that was her decision, but it hurts tremendously when you, as a family member or a friend, have to be there to help them pick up the pieces, to help them put themselves back together again, to help them feel whole, to help them feel a sense of this is me, as opposed to being depressed and down and feeling that way. So mental illness is definitely real, and I think that I would love for um, you to comment and let me know. Do you have a family member or a friend who has a mental disorder? Um, and let me know um, your thoughts. Um, and let's go from there. I know that a lot of the mental health organizations, as this is really being sort of like talked about globally, they're basically saying, you know what, we want to unsilence. We do. We want to unsilence. A lot of people are suffering. And, we have to help them realize that they are not alone. And I know they say that, like, there's so many people, like millions of people in the United States are affected by mental illness each year. Um, and so we have to understand and measure that it's common. It's common, you know. And some of the facts that I remember reading about after the how Jennifer shows I went and I looked, and it said that like 1 in 5 in U.S. adults experience mental illness each year. 1 in 5 adults, and then 1 in 20 U.S. adults experience serious mental illness each year. 1 in 20 U.S. adults experience serious mental illness. So 1 in 5 experience mental illness, but 1 in 20 experience serious mental illness. And then 1 in 6 United States youth, we're talking about youth, age 6 to 17. So between 6 and 17, experience a mental health disorder each year. I was saddened to when I read that, but um, wow, 1 in 6 youth between the ages of 6 and 17. And then 50% of all lifetime mental illness begins by age 14 and 75% by age 24. Wow. And then suicide is the second leading cause of death among people between the age of 10 and 14. And you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I've been seeing so many stories on the internet regarding young individuals between 10, 14, 15, 16 years old that's taken their lives. There was a young individual who actually left school, during school time, okay, school hours. That school was located close to a major highway and freeway. She walked out on the interstate and she jumped over that bridge. That is so sad. She was 16 years old, and you have to wonder. Now there was some when they did break that story, and some of of her classmates said they felt like she was being um, shamed for her weight, her size. She wasn't a fat, obese girl. She was just, heavier for her height. And I think a lot of times children and youth, they don't understand how sometimes youth and children, you don't understand, you're not old enough to understand and realize that, you don't let what people say about you bother you to the point that you're going to take your life. um, Children and youths want to be loved and liked by everyone. So if you say something negative, of course, what's going to happen? They don't know how to process that. And a lot of times they will think and attempt suicide. So it's interesting that most time when these stories that I've read about recently of young youths taking their own lives, there was a mention of the child um, may have been depressed. The child may have been concerned about their weight, their looks. They may have been concerned about things that some of the kids and other children were saying about them. They were, and it's just astonishing when you actually look at and read statistics. So I didn't know the information, those little fast facts that I gave you guys. I didn't know that prior to today. I mean, I knew that we had a lot of young children, youths committing suicide. I knew that a lot of people are experiencing mental illness, but it seems like now there's so many people affected, by mental illness. And I want to think that in 2020, 21% of adults in the United States had experienced mental illness, right? And then, of course, um, the number of youths, I think the number was six. Well, no, I think the number was between 6 and 17. And that was in 2016. That was had experienced some type of mental health disorder. 7.7 million people. Wow. Mm. Anyway, that I'm saddened by that. So please comment, like, share, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know some of your personal experiences with family members, friends. You don't have to give names, just some things that you have seen, you've experienced concerning mental health, and how if you recognize that it is a serious health issue today that we need to be concerned about. Um, I mean, I gave you some fast fact and some statistics of what I saw, um, and it was interesting to even read how the different quote unquote races, um, how that breaks down. I want to think that the largest was the, of course, lesbian, gay, bisexual. I think it was like 47 or 48%. And then coming second was the non-Hispanic mixed, multiracial. You can understand that. A lot of times, they get talked about because of their skin complexion being so light or not um, similar to what they consider to be the norm. But what's the norm, right? Um, and I think that was like 35%. And then number three was, of course, non-Hispanic white. They were like 23%. And I want to think the next one was I think it was the American Indian, non-Hispanic American Indian. I think they were like 18%. Um, or it's 18.7%, because then 18.4% was like the Hispanic or Latino. I remember it was like right neck to neck. And then you have, of course, 17.3%, which is going to be the non-Hispanic Black or African American. And then the 16%, which followed them, was the non-Hispanic Pacific Islander, Native Hawaiian, and they were like 16%. So again, just the breakdown by demographic group. I found that was interesting, you know. So and then they had a portion where they talked about the number of people with the different quote unquote conditions. And when I saw that, like equated to people, like the number of people, because my family member has been um, I want to think it was the first three that was on the list, because the first three was like major depressive, schizophrenic, and bipolar. And my family member was diagnosed with all three of those, at the same time, of course. But major depressive, like 8.4%. That's 21 million people. And then schizophrenia was only like it was like less than 1%, but that was like 1.5 million people. And then you have bipolar disorder, which was 2.8%, and that's 7 million people. And then of course, they went into, I think, anxiety disorder, post traumatic stress disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, and then it was borderline personality disorder, which I found was interesting. That was only 1.4%, which is like what one no 3.5 million people, which I would have thought that would have had more. I would have thought that percentage would have been higher for borderline personality disorder. But anyway, there's a lot of information out there. I hope that I remember that information correctly. But I want to think the website that I was on was the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI. Again, it was the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So go to their website. I think it's www.nami.org. And I think it's MH Stats or something like that. But if you go to their website, www.naming.org, and that's the National Alliance on Mental Illness, you will see those numbers broken down as far as by demographics and just the number of um, just the whole mental health care matters and issues that we're facing, which again I think that it was quite interesting. And of course, when they broke it down by male and female, female at 51% and male were only 37.4%. And that shouldn't be surprising. The things that women go through, sometimes they're dealing with sexual acts and offenses against them, whether it's rape or attempted rape or you, you know, being in an abusive relationship. And I'm not putting the blame on anyone, but I'm saying women go through and deal with so many other factors in addition. And so it didn't surprise me. I thought the rate or the percentage for women was going to be higher than 51%, but it was only 51%. But I was thinking it was going to be higher just because, like I said, you know, women are sometimes abused physically, mentally. So that didn't surprise me. All right. Again, please comment, like, share, and subscribe. I hope that this has been informative for some of you. And again, I would love to hear your comments and some of your personal experiences. I can only relate again to my personal experiences. And I definitely can write a book about some of the incidences that we've been through with our family members. Notice I said members, plural, because we have several family members who have been diagnosed with some form of a mental disorder. And there have been some life and death situations that have occurred. But it's their family, and that they're not themselves when they have those episodes. So you, as a person, knowing that this person has a mental disorder, you have to be able to not take it personally that you hold that against them. Um, and I can again speak from my personal experience, and that personal experience for me was a situation where I had to make a decision, um, and that spared our lives for the people that was in that vehicle that night, because this particular person had an episode and didn't know who anyone was, and I will never forget that. So again, I can write a book with the experiences that I have had with my family members. Um, so when you think about it and you put it in perspective, again, you have to be able to say to yourself, they're not themselves. Again, I'm going to sign off. I hope that, again, this has been informative. I would like to, read your comments. So, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Until I record my next or do my next vlog, I do want everyone to have a good evening. Toodles.